Keeping the clock ticking on TikTok, extending the deadline to sell to a U.S. company by another 75 days. The president says his administration has made, quote, tremendous progress on a deal as several potential buyers put in bids for the app, including Amazon. Joining me now to talk about this is cybersecurity analyst Eric Cole. Eric, thanks for coming on. It feels like they've been working on this deal for forever at this point. Do you get the sense that they're actually close, as President Trump says?
I think they are getting close, but the thing you have to remember is there's a lot more at stake than just a social media platform. TikTok is a database that contains millions upon millions of Americans' thoughts, ideas, and how they act and how they operate. So it's not just about purchasing TikTok, but what about the servers in China? What about all that information and what about all that data? So there's a lot more moving pieces that have to deal with America's privacy and protection of our citizens. And I think all of those things are being worked and negotiated alongside with the tariffs and other components. So this is multifaceted, and it's a lot more than just TikTok. It's a negotiating tactic for President Trump.
And speaking of the tariffs, do you think those tariffs which Trump just put on China, they could potentially impact this deal? China is upset by the tariffs, and you need China to work with you on this TikTok deal.
Absolutely, and I think the timing of the TikTok is no coincidence. President Trump is brilliant. He always has a plan, and he always has a strategy. And to me, TikTok is a negotiating tactic to get China to lower their tariffs on America. Because the reality is, we were in a standstill. China had tariffs. We raised our tariffs. China didn't like it. TikTok gives a new component in this chess game. Now, if we can negotiate TikTok and get that to be American-owned, that could be a way that the China can save face, lower our tariffs, and still get a good deal for America.
And why is this such an attractive deal for the American buyers who are looking to get into it? People, you know, companies like Amazon, why would they want TikTok?
Amazon coming in late is probably one of the smartest moves for them, because here's the reality. For Amazon to be successful and to continue to grow, it needs to target market its consumers. It needs to know people's buying habits, how they think and how they operate. Imagine if Amazon now has access to how Americans think, how they behave, what they do, where they go and how they shop, and they can now use that for target marketing. So imagine you're on TikTok and you're talking about buying a new car or buying some new services, and all of a sudden Amazon starts targeting you with car products, car components, and things like that. So to me, Amazon is basically wanting TikTok so it can have all this data, train its AI models, and do better target marketing to increase its sales and profit.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that in terms of Amazon's perspective. So 75-day extension. In your opinion, do we get there in these next 75 days?
Absolutely. I think we get there in the next 30 days. I mean, if you look into Vice President Vance, he was very confident that we were going to get a deal by today. But I think just with the tariffs, they just needed a little more time. They probably only needed 2 to 3 weeks. But to be safe, 75 days gives them a much bigger window to operate in. So I think by end of April, early May, you're going to see a company like Amazon acquire TikTok, and you're going to see this part of the tariffs and the trade deal. So I think this is going to be wrapped up in the next 30 to 45 days.
And last question, just to that point. So you think this is basically a negotiating tactic that Trump has kept in his back pocket with the tariffs, with TikTok, and it's all going to be packaged together into one big, beautiful deal, as he might say?
Absolutely, because you have to remember, when you're negotiating deals like tariffs, you're basically in a standoff. Right now, if we were only dealing with tariffs, China and the U.S. don't agree. So we're basically in a standoff that could get really, really ugly. So one of the masterful things that Trump does is, let's bring in a new chess piece. Let's bring in a new angle. So now, by putting a new card on the table with TikTok, it changes the focus from the tariffs now to protecting and controlling data. And by doing that, all of a sudden, the tariffs become secondary and they become negotiated. So I just think this is part of the brilliant strategic moves that Trump does, just playing chess at a multi-dimensional level.
All right, we'll see if it works. Eric Cole, great insight from you. Thanks for coming on. Have a good Saturday. Well, now to